Hello everyone, my name is Emilie ADOIR. I work at the French Institut for Vine and Wine, IFV, and I would present you a tool that we have built to help vine growers in their assessment of carbon footprint and its reduction. So while looking at carbon footprint in viticulture, I remind you that viticulture faces a double challenge, adaptation to and mitigation of climate change. The first challenge of viticulture is to adapt itself to climate change, and you had a lot of presentation during this web conference about it. The second challenge is to mitigate climate change by reducing its GHG emissions, so in other words, its carbon footprint, being careful not to choose adaptation practices that will worsen its carbon footprint. Another element of context is the strategies at European and national levels since the COP21 in Paris that puts the objective of reaching the net zero emissions by 2050 and that expect all economic sectors to make efforts to reduce their GHG emissions. So to know how to contribute to this objective, vine growers need to quantify their own emissions today and to assess how much the carbon footprint can be reduced when applying different changes in technical itineraries, and that's what our tool GES&Vit does. The carbon footprints consist of quantifying GHG emissions on the whole life cycle. That means all the carbon footprints of inputs of each step of one life cycle, for example here the inputs of viticulture, and the direct emission at the place of each step, for example here at viticulture, the fossil CO2 emitted by fuels and the dinitrogen monoxide emitted by fertilizers and organic residues. Then all this inventory of emissions is aggregated under the same unit, which is kilogram CO2 equivalent to get the indicator carbon footprint. And then I outline here that the tool GES&Vit focuses so far only on the viticultural step, even if other steps like conditioning contribute for a large part of the wine carbon footprint. The idea of GES&Vit is to implement a list of data that are processed by the calculator to get the carbon footprint as complete as possible, covering the direct emission, carbon storage in soils, carbon footprint of inputs, and of transport of workers. GES&Vit has been designed to help as much as possible the estimation of those flows per viticultural operation and per viticultural system by asking data that are known by the vine grower, and you here have an example of those technical data, such as planting density, number of operations, number of rows treated, type of grass cover, and so on. Here you have a picture on how GES&Vit structures the flows of each source of emissions that you see here in columns and per viticultural operation type that you see in line. The results of GES&Vit are also structured like that. That makes the first key point of GES&Vit, which is to allow carbon footprint diagnosis at the scale of practices. First, you get an aggregation of carbon footprint per operation type, so per line of this picture. And this gives you this kind of graph where you see here, for example, that the operation of fertilizing is the most important in carbon footprint of each viticultural system of this vineyard. Secondly, you can get an aggregation of carbon footprint per source of emissions, so per columns of this picture. And this gives you the other kind of graph, where you see, for example, that consumption of fuel by tractors on road and transport of workers is bigger for the viticultural system number 2. And this can be explained, in this case, by the distance of plots considered in this system number 2. And I just highlight here that the results in those two types of graphs can be expressed per year or per hectare and per year. Now the second key point of GES&Vit is to integrate a model for estimating the carbon storage in soil and to calculate a net carbon footprint that is represented on each histogram by the blue square. So in the positive values, you can read the estimation of GHG emissions, and in the negative values, you read the estimation of carbon storage considered as avoided emissions. On top of this representation, GES&Vit provides a graph that shows the evolution of soil organic carbon over 50 years, and that can be educational to understand the dynamic of carbon in soils. The third key point is to provide the opportunity to assess the carbon footprint reduction thanks to a viticultural practice change. Here you have the example of the sensitive variety switched to a resistant variety to fungal disease. And so you can test the effect of a change to resistant variety, but also a change in types of quantities of fertilizers, reduction of fuel consumption in different ways, an additional carbon storage in soil thanks to grass covering, vine shoot treading, or also by organic fertilizers. Other practices changes cannot yet be assessed in GES&Vit, but hopefully soon, such as hedgerows planting, animal power and electrical equipments, or also trellising elements manufacturing. Very quickly, just a few practical information about GES&Vit. First, it is still a hybrid tool between Excel format and online application, because you have to connect on the web platform to download an empty Excel collection file, to import the feed file on the web platform, and after 1 minute and a half there is a results file that appears in your download folder. Also, you have to get an annual license to use this tool and to follow a training session on a 1 day and a half for each user. As a conclusion, I will sum up what GES&Vit do today and what are the perspectives. So GES&Vit makes possible to get the carbon footprint of viticulture, taking into account direct and indirect emissions, but also carbon storage in soils, and provide results at fine scales. The perspectives of GES&Vit development is to get a 100% online application, connecting to other softwares to improve continuously the methodology for vine, to provide a tool for the whole life cycle, including not only viticulture, but also vinification, conditioning and distribution of wines. And once we will have done all that, we would like to go towards a multi-criteria tool, including all the other indicators of the life cycle analysis method. I would like to thank you for your attention, and here you have contacts and links for more information. Thank you.